It's already broken, but not too bad. This is my '89 Porsche 911 Carrera Cabriolet, and it's been out on a few rentals. And the headlights kind of have a mind of their own. Something up with the dimmer switch, it's automatically flashing the high beams when you don't want to. Whether you hit a bump or you bump the turn signal switch, it's just really sensitive. So that doesn't seem right. Like it just flashed the high beams, just barely touching the stock here. Like if I want to make a left turn, sometimes it'll flash the high beams when you don't want it to. So first thing to do is disconnect the battery. This is the Porsche air compressor. And then just all this spare carpet. We'll pull this out real quick. This unsnaps. I'm actually pulling on the snaps and not the carpet because you can just rip the carpet. A huge battery in here, interstate battery. This is the toolkit. And guys, while I'm in here, I'm going to be doing a little bit of detailing and also cavity wax on the suspension pan because I do not want this to rust. So before we put this back together, you know, we'll vacuum and air compress all this out of here. So the reason why we take the negative side off is because if this wrench contacts the body, it's not going to arc. Whereas on this one, if you touch here and you touch here, you're gonna have a problem. Just gonna pry this open just a little bit because it's really tight. There we go, now it's loose. We'll just wiggle that right off. All right, first thing to do is to position the steering wheel so it's straight. We'll try not to move the wheel, and I think I'll also put the top down so we'll get more light in here for the camera. So to get this horn button off, I'm pretty sure this just pops off. You see there's a wire there. I want to disconnect that. Can you see how the nut there is a little obstructed there? So I think if we get a socket and an extension, we should be able to pull that wheel right off. It's going to be kind of awkward. You got to hold the wheel and turn it. I might go get my impact wrench, but this wasn't very tight. So there's the nut. I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to put the nut back on just partially. This thing comes loose in a hurry. You don't want it to hit you in the face. So it's all the way loose now. I can pull it off. There we go. So now we can see the switch. That's it right there, but we need to take this housing off so we can get full access to it. Looks like 1, 2, 3, 4 screws. I think I'm going to disconnect the wiring under the dash. Probably could be fixed in the car, but I wanted to bring it out just to show you guys. These are pretty straightforward connections. It all color coded and the wires are just hanging there. These go to the back of the ignition switch and a little tricky. I did take pictures and I'll get them put back right where they came from, but you really got to pay attention to where these wire goes. And then 2 of them are the same color. They're, well, pretty much the same color, gray and red looks like. So one might be red with a white stripe, and one might be gray with a red stripe. But when you're working underneath there, it gets kind of confusing. So I put a piece of tape on there. So in the pictures, it shows which one is the lower one. That's the one with the tape on it. So I know you're thinking, Tom, just replace the switch. And I might have to, but of course I'm going to try to fix it first. And I think the problem with this is, and this is a common problem with these cars, the headlights don't have relays. And so all the power from the headlights go through these contacts right here. See, I'm moving that one with my finger. And what happens is they get old and resistance increases on the contacts, and then you create heat in here. And then that distorts the copper, or it also maybe distorts the plastic. And so the spacing between these contacts gets altered over time because it's not supposed to be touching right now, and it's almost touching. So what has to happen is this piece needs to get bent back into the larger gap there. And then I want to put relays in the car so we're not pushing so much current through here. And if we can get this switch back to original position and put the relays in it in the front of the car, I don't think there'll be enough current to cause it to fail again. So we'll try for a permanent fix here without spending 300 bucks. This one looks to have a date code on it as well, and I think it says 87, which this car is an 89. It's plausible this is the original switch. I'm not sure how to read the date codes. It does say SWF on the back. The first thing I'm going to do is take some sandpaper. This is 1000 grit. Just going to cut it into a strip like I've already done. I'm going to fold it, and I'm going to sneak it through those contacts. And one, get a feel for how much distance there is, and two, to kind of burnish those contacts so they're extra smooth. It's currently 1 paper thickness. So I'm just going to work this up and down. In order to get that in there, I got to pull back on the switch, which is like what it was doing in the car. In order to turn the headlights off, I had to pull back on that manually, kind of, flex those internal pieces. The other problem I just realized, guys, is this pivot pin is walking its way out. So it should be equal on both sides, and it's not. So that's a problem right there too. I might put a little JB weld on either side of there just to prevent it from doing that again. Just mixing a tiny bit of JB weld here. So a little bit on the metal, a little bit on the plastic, and I think a dab will do ya. And way down inside there is another contact, which I'm having to put this, I cut this a little thinner. I'm putting it all the way down in the hole. Just carefully, just give that a little twist. Everything should be parallel. So now I have a nice gap here on, this is the high beam tab. It's not making any contact. No matter what I do with the switch, with my hand, wiggle it, hit a bump, whatever, no contact there. But when I deliberately push it forward, I got plenty of contact. I can feel it. It's really tight. You can hear it clicking back. So that's high beams. That's regular low beams. And then flasher is this one. Now when I hit the flasher, there's a contact behind there that makes contact. And that was working fine before. I did clean it the best I could with 1000 grit. Everything's lubed up. I used some Teflon spray. It's called Ultra Lube. I think it's for bike chains or something. And I don't see any hardened grease on here. Everything else is working great. So time to put it back in the car. Okay, everything inside the car here is put back together, at least the switch. I got the switch installed. I got the wiring under the dash, and everything's put back in its original position. So I'm gonna go ahead and put it onto on, and let's try the headlights. Yep, that's headlights. We'll try, let's see, high beams is forward. Yep, high beams, indicator there. Left turn signal, right turn signal, and flashers. So everything works like it should. And now when I wiggle the stock, I'm not getting that same air where the lights are freaking out. Thankfully, everything's working as it should. It's restored back to the factory condition. But I measured a lot of current with this meter going through the dimmer switch. So it's as much as 10 amps when the high beams are on. And that's just a lot of current to run through that switch continuously, especially when you're flicking it on and off. That's like, you know, arcing those contacts. They're gonna wear out again. The solution now is to add some aftermarket relays near the fuse panel, and that'll redirect the current from the dimmer switch right into the new relays. And those relays are, you know, a lot less than 300 bucks and easy to replace. They're actually more reliable than the mechanical relays that you switch with your hands. This modification is 100% reversible for those that really want a 100% stock car. Yeah, this is not going to stay like this. This is just the extended wiring here, the yellow and the white, going right into the relays. I'm going to add the sockets. So these are, you know, pluggable, but they haven't arrived yet. So I just put some temporary wires right onto the relays just to make everything function and keep moving. So this ground, everything's going to get redone, but it's powered up. I got the ground back on the battery. So let's try the lights. There's headlights, then push forward for high beams. High beams off, high beams on. Blinkers, just kind of wiggle the switch a little bit, see if we can get it to do that fault again. And then if I pull back, we flash the high beams. And I can do that as many times as I want. You can hear those relays clicking, but that's awesome. Headlights off, I can still flash the high beams. Off, on. And if I wiggle the switch here, I'm not getting any high beams like I used to. I used to be able to get the high beams by doing that. But if I pull back, I get high beams. This is the horn contact that's pretty grody, so I'm going to soak it in this white vinegar for a little bit. Also, these trim screws are pretty gross. This is for the driver's side kick panel. So I thought I would just clean them up and spray them black before I put them on. Kind of killing time here. This piece is coming along nicely. Horn contact in, all the horn wires are attached. This horn wire here goes into that lower clamshell screw. I remember that when I took that apart. So everything's plugged in and everything's working fine. The only thing is I realized I was missing these screws on the clamshell side. There's these screws on the side. They weren't there, so I have a temporary screw in there now. That's a Phillips head. It should be those cheese head flat screw ones, and so it was missing on both sides. So you can see a shiny screw in there. There's a problem with the speedometer. It's one of the bulbs is out. So when the headlights are on, all the lights light up except for this one. go. Someone has been here before, and this wire has come unglued or uncrimped from this bullet connector here. We just got to fix what someone else did that wasn't really that great of a repair. Same thing here with the clock. There's just one light, but it's got the same pink crimp terminal on there. It just hasn't failed yet. So we'll go ahead and fix both of these before that one breaks too. And for this, I'm using non-insulated double crimp terminals. And then this is my crimp tool that really works well. This is the only tool that should be used to crimp stuff like this that's uninsulated. And uninsulated crimps better because you're actually able to roll those little tabs around the wire. So the pull strength is just way better. Here's how it looks after it's been shrunk down. It's pretty much the same as the ones next to it, like the factory did. This white-green wire was taped off and cut, and I believe it goes here, white-green. That would be for this indicator right here, which it's not the high beams. It's maybe the headlights or the fog lights. I'm not sure, but either way, it wouldn't work if it's not connected. So I'm going to go ahead and put a connector on there, and I'll look and see if I have from another gauge one of the lights that go in there. I did find a bulb to put in there. It's the older variety. I think it sticks out a little longer. Keys on. Headlights. And so now the speedometer lighting is working. Not too bad. I think these might be LEDs behind there because they're a little bit bluer than usual. I don't hate it. And as long as they all work, I think I'm fine. The clock only has one bulb, so the way it lights up is not 100% uniform. This is the high beam on the tack, and then this is that green light there. That's the parking lights. And now we can put the wheel on. Try to put it on straight. This is probably going to honk the horn. Yeah. And my shipment came, and these are the sockets that allow these relays to just kind of plug in there like that. So the wires come out the back, we attach it to something to the car, and then this will keep it all pretty tidy. And these come individual, and then they kind of snap together, a little bit like Legos. And I have a little plastic plate that's going to hold it. If you guys are familiar with the J West kit, this is basically the same thing. So if you don't have the crimpers and the rivet gun and all the things, just buy the J West kit. These aren't very expensive. I got those sockets installed and tidied up. All the wires are running, behind, and they come up through here right to the original fuses. Blue, green are the new colors. And, it's secure. A little different because there's a connector, factory connector behind that one, but it's okay. These relays look like they're backwards, but that's the way the sockets are. Probably could get relays without those tabs on them. It might look a little better, but this all goes under the carpet. Doesn't really matter. Just trying to improve the performance of the electrical system. But I like all the terminals that I did. This is the power wire, goes right to the battery. That's what powers the relays. The ground wire goes along those harnesses there and terminates right here by the strut tower. So there's a ground lug right there. That's where the ground is for the relays. Does fit, snaps right on there like that. Car is good to go again. We got a lot of things fixed. Some things I didn't even know that were broken got fixed. So this thing is ready to go. It's probably the best maintained rental 911 there is. Actually, on Orange County, there's no 911s for rent. So this is the only one. If you're interested in renting it, please reach out to me or go to driveshare.com. You can rent it through Haggerty themselves. It's a super fun car. For those of you that really want to understand how this works, the relay has these 4 pins on the back, 30, 85, 86, and 87. 30 is the high power feed, 85 is the ground, 86 is the relay coil trigger, 87 is the high power output. So what we've done, this is just the low beams, but we've taken the yellow wire that normally goes to fuse S6, and we've rerouted it over here to number 86 on the relay. That is what diverts the power from the dimmer switch. And then we take power right from the battery going into terminal 30. 85 is ground. What it does is it triggers the coil to activate power from 30 to 87. It basically closes these two together. There's little contacts inside, and then that goes right back into the factory S6. So the headlights are still fused, and then it goes out to the wire harness right to the headlights. And that's just the low beam side. The high beam side is the same, just different colors. It's a white wire, but there's two relays, one for low beam, one for high beam. So that's the diagram. That's how it works. Pretty simple system, but effective.